Connor and I have landed in Thessaloniki in the shadow of Mount Olympus, ready for an epic adventure.
Yeah, we're leaving the city streets behind and we're going to try and ride to the very top, to the summit. Luckily, Jack Wolfskin have provided us with all the gear we need to survive a few nights in the mountains because we're camping, and Stork have sent us the bikes which will hopefully get us to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, by the time we end this video, we're going to be sat, hopefully, on the top of Mount Olympus. But right now, we're going to go through every bit of detail on what kit we bought and what bikes we're riding. Right, it's about time we go for a deep dive.
Let's do it. So this is the bike I'm using to ride to the top of Mount Olympus. It's the Storks Grix 2, a gravel bike with a maximum tyre clearance of 44 millimetres if you're running 700C, or 50 millimetres if you're going for 650B wheels. I'm actually using 40mm tyres on this setup, mainly because I wanted something a little bit fast. We had such a big run in from Thessaloniki that I wanted to get the pace up and actually make it to the mountain in good time. Comes with an integrated cockpit, also hidden cabling, so nice and sleek at the front, and hidden seat tube clamp. I'm using Shimano GRX mechanical with a 48-31 on the front and a 34 on the back. So I've got a 31-34, really easy gear to make our way to the top of the mountain, and I can tell you I'm glad of it because it's been pretty steep. Disc brakes, 175mm cranks, plenty of mountain points on this bike. So you've got 4 on the forks here, 2 on the down tube down here, and also 4 more on the triangle at the back, which means it's perfect to fit a pannier rack. And as you can see, I've absolutely loaded it up. This pannier rack has a max load of 25 kilos, and I've become the workhorse on this trip after we run into a bit of difficulty, and you can find out why by watching the feature over on GCN. That's pretty much all from me right now because I can't hang around too long. The mountain beckons, and Zeus is waiting for me.
Just like Connor, I've also got a Stork Grix 0.2. Now we've got a similar setup, but not exactly the same. Now they come in a range of sizes from small up to XXL, and the weight of a medium is 8.18 kilograms, so still fairly light. Now as you can see, I've got mine fully laden, but the group set I'm riding is very different to Connor's. I've got a 1x, so I've got SRAM Force, and I've got a 40 tooth on the front and a 42 on the back, which is making, well, mean work of this steep and pretty rough terrain. Now as you can see, Stork is known for its amazing paint jobs, and this is no different. Look at the state of that paint job. This lovely kind of brown bronze finish to it. I've got to say, it's one of my favorite. I think it works perfectly on a gravel bike like this. I'm also running the same tires and the same setup as Connor, but I've gone for only about 45 PSI up front and at the back. Right, it's about time the sun goes down and we keep going, because we're not there yet.
So I've gone for a different setup to Hank. I've gone for the pannier rack with the pannier bags on. These are all from Jack Wolfskin. They're made of recycled materials and they're also fully waterproof. The pannier bags, which I'm using from Jack Wolfskin, have a 22-litre capacity, and that's in each bag, so 44 litres in total at the back there. And if you do have the option to mount a pannier rack, really can get a lot of stuff if you're going for a longer trip. Also, you can strap anything with a bungee cord to the top there. I've chosen to put my flip-flops, but you could perhaps strap some water or anything larger like a jacket. Really makes it handy, and you can easily access your stuff as well. Pair that with the smaller bags, the frame bag and the top tube bag, which we're using on this trip, and you've got plenty of room to carry all those smaller items.
So I've decided to go for a slightly different bag setup to what Connor's gone for. Now for me, it just suits my riding style and being able to get out the saddle that little bit easier. Now on the back here, I've got the Jack Wolfskin saddlebag. Now in there, I've got all my camping equipment that I don't need for during the day and the riding during the day. So I've got my camp or my tent, shall I say, my sleeping bag, and my cooking utensils. And then if we move to the front of the bike, over there I've got my top tube bag. Now that one's really good because I can actually see where I'm going. So I've got the Komoot loop and map on my phone, so I can see exactly where we're going, zoom out and in, knowing how much elevation we've got to go. And I've also got a big battery bank in there too, to be able to charge my phone on the go. And then moving down to the frame bag, I've got all my food, puncture repair kit, and some extra snacks for the journey, because, well, this is an absolute mountain of a climb, and I need all the snacks possible to make it up in good time. So a few SIS gels, a few bars, and also some hydro tabs as well to help keep me nice and hydrated through this journey. That's my setup, slightly different to Connor's, but for me, it works perfectly. While we're having our coffee, I thought I'd talk you through some of the sleeping bags we're using. Now, we've been lucky enough to get hold of a Jack Wolfskin sleeping bags. Now, Connor is very nicely modelling the Jack Wolfskin Smooth Zip -5. Now, we've been using the -5 ones because it's been pretty nippy up here. Now this has a synthetic fill with a nice fleece liner to keep you nice and cozy, and it's also got this S-zip, so you can turn it into a duvet if it gets pretty warm at night. And it's also got a nice big hood there, so you can have a pillow instead of bringing a separate one too. I mean, it must be all right because Connor isn't even out of it yet, and well, we're moments away from climbing Mount Olympus. Are you gonna get out?
Probably get out of there now.
You should, yeah. But it looks blooming cozy.
It's really cozy. Before I get out of my sleeping bag, I thought I'd talk you through the tents we've been using on this trip. Jack Wolfskin have provided us with the Exolite 1, which we're really grateful for. It's been so easy to pitch on different terrains. You need minimal pegs. It's kind of a freestanding tent thanks to that external frame. So quick to pitch as well, so if you are camping out and the rain starts to fall and you just want to get in and get nice and cozy, you get the tent up quick, get inside, get in your sleeping bag, find some shelter. It's got a hydrostatic head rating of 1500 millimeters and a bathtub ground sheet on the bottom with a 5000 millimeter hydrostatic head rating. Thanks, packing it away now, and it packs up super small too, because once it's all rolled up and together, 43 by 12 centimeters and super light too. So you can fit it in a variety of different bags. Not being able to make coffee in the morning is an absolute disaster for me, and I'm sure for many of you at home, it'll be the same. What I like to do to avoid missing out on a good cup of coffee, bring a stove with me. I've got a real small one which you can see attached to this gas canister here. The thing with gas is it's very powerful, you boil water quickly, but if you are doing a long trip, it can be quite hard to pick up new gas canisters along the way, and sometimes you might have to change your route to find one. If that's the case, you're thinking of going on an epic, maybe consider getting an alcohol burner. You can fill this with methylated spirits, which can be a little bit easier to find, and also you can put them in smaller bottles which are easy to store in your bags. This is obviously pretty chunky, it's the smallest one they had in the shop. The way I like to make my coffee when I'm bike packing is pretty simple. I get pretty fine ground coffee, I put it in my mug, boil the water, and I leave it for 3 or 4 minutes, let the coffee settle. Called a cowboy coffee, easy thing to do, least gear possible needed to make a coffee, and you still get your caffeine fix.
While Connor and I are out on our adventure up Mount Olympus, there's a few essentials that we've got to bring to keep us safe, but also give us the best chance to make it up the top of the mountain. Kicking off with lights. Now, for every bikepacking adventure, I would highly suggest you bring a good set of lights with you. I've got exposures, I've got a 1500 lumen one there, and I've got an 80 lumen one there for the rear. Having a good pair of lights that you can take off the bike as well is super handy, especially as you can use it as a torch when you're heading around camp. The other thing, talking about camp, is having a spork. Now, a spork's super useful. They've got a knife on one edge, they've got a fork, and they've also got a spoon, which work really well when you want to eat different kinds of things, from soups to pizzas, I guess. Good tin, bringing in a good tin with you. Not only can you boil water and cook pasta, as we have done on this trip, but you can also drink a good cup of tea and coffee in the morning. And let me tell you, Connor does not want to go without a coffee in the morning. So having one of these in your saddlebag is an absolute must. Moving on to one of the most important items, I would say, and that is a good battery bank. Now, this can charge your navigation systems, so your Wahoo head unit on your navigation system, and it can also charge your phone. So if you've got to speak to families, relatives, or your loved ones, making sure that your phone is well stocked up with battery is an absolute must. And it's also good to share your location. That way, if you get in any danger, everyone knows where you are. So having one of these is also an absolute must. Now, the stove we used on our epic journey up Mount Olympus is this one. Now, this one's great because it gets nice and small, and you can take it right in the middle of your saddlebag without even knowing it's there, and that creates that attaches to a nice gas canister, and then you're sorted for all your cooking.
I love some of the small little bits and bobs that I bring on adventures such as these, so I'm going to talk you through a few of my favourites right now. Starting off with a sleeping mat. There are a few options out there if you're considering trying something like myself and Hank are doing at the moment. I go for a self-inflating sleeping bag like this. It's got a bit of foam inside. It's not quite as long as a normal sleeping mat, which means it's a lot easier to pack, which is quite important. So it's only half a body length, whereas Hank, he's gone for the full length, but it's just fully inflatable, which is good because it's quite light, easy to pack, as you can see, but if you do puncture it, that's it, you're on the ground. Whereas with a self-inflating mat, you do have a little bit of foam inside, which gives you some sort of comfort if the worst does happen. Of course, you can also get a roll-up foam mat, which is totally foolproof. It's a little bit harder to pack on the bike, still a little bit bulky, not too bad, but it's not quite as comfortable as something like this, which I do tend to have a really good, nice kip on. Next up, head torch. You would not believe how valuable these are, especially on days like we've had in Greece. It's been super warm during the day, but the nights have closed in, and they close in quick, and you can't see anything obviously. And I always have my head torch handy for such occasions. You just get it on, turn it on, and then you don't have to worry about looking around with a torch and wondering where you're going, walking into walls like I do, or doorways.
So there we are, there's our deep dive kit check on everything we brought up to the top of Mount Olympus, with Zeus's throne just behind us.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give us a thumbs up if you did, and let us know in the comments section down below what you think you most like to bring to the top of Mount Olympus. Interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, there we go, we made it, mate. Congrats,
High five.
Dude.
Thanks for watching, everyone.